Overclocking the CPU, memory and even our GPU to get higher clock speed than the official speed grade, to get our system run faster, sharper and perhaps higher performance that we get. But how to do it, we probably already know it. But sometimes we are not just showing. I should give a little guide to provide a quick, simple tech tips to our audience. And this is Marco. He threw me a question and asked me about, hi, the maximum I can do here is 2700. If you do more than this, the PC will hot. Thanks for the question, Marco. In this video, I will give 5 common problems in CPU overclocking, and this is time to let me tell you. First of all, overclocking of an Intel CPU can be done in 2 fundamental ways. First, FSB. We can simply increase in front side bus, what we call FSB, which means to increase the data transfer rate between the CPU and the memory, what we call RAM. And the second is increasing the multiplier. This option isn't available to all users unless there's the unlocked chipset. Now, however, I will be using the BIOS to do all the tricks. Also, note that when we overclock our CPU, we are also overclock our motherboard and RAM, so note that. When we are making our RAM overclocking to a certain level, we can see there's a noticeably unstable in the system. But don't worry, we can simply downclock the RAM FSB, decreasing the FSB DRAM ratio like I do, until it becomes stable. In order to handle the overclock, ideally we will need P35, X35 and P45 motherboards. Now the very first thing to take in mind is the cooling. The cooling solution. Now remember, everything that's under the hood, they generate heat, include the CPU, VRAM, RAM, chipset and so on, etc. So be sure the cooling is in a tip-top condition. Before we attempt to overclock anything in our system, we have to understand overclock is a way to overdrive our hardware to hopefully increase few percent of performance from the manufacturer rated. Pushing the hardware to a limit, usually there are some drawbacks we have to consider about. This is definitely decreasing in lifespan, depends conditions. The first thing to be very concerned is cooling performance. Just like a car, if we throw turbo under the hoods, we will get more horsepower, but at the same time, the cooling solution is the first thing we have to deal with. Make sure everything clean and nice. The airflow inside your case, I mean the PC, and type of a cooling solution. People overclock their PC by using water cool or twin tower, the big tower air cool solution, and even stock like I do. But whatever cooling solution that you are using, but make sure the condition of a cooling system must be very good and keep monitor the temperature. That's the most practical way to do, and I recommend goes for a twin tower, big tower, air cool or water cool will be very comfortable to overclock with. Now the second thing is voltage. Now Marco mentioned about overheating issue after he attempted to increase the frequency of a CPU. But that's the first thing you have to know. Everything under the hood they call semiconductor. It means when current flow through, there's a generate of heat upon the component. The increase of frequency doesn't affect the CPU to overheat, but what causes the CPU to overheat is voltage. Voltage is the killer to every component. Now, this always due to the insufficient cooling, over voltage or voltage settings. Yes, voltage settings. Go to the BIOS and set the voltage settings to manual instead of auto. Don't use auto voltage settings. It tends to overvolt your CPU and get overheat before you even reach the desired frequency. So this is a voltage guide. Don't go beyond 1.5 volt and never jump too high at once. 1.5 volt is a limit. It's a limit to almost all CPU out there. So note that. Now number 3, frequency. The CPU frequency, the memory frequency. I increase CPU frequency and increase voltage slowly until the system starts to feel during full utilization and even feel to boot. Voltage is to maintain the stability of the system. Once the frequency increases, the higher voltage needed to keep it working. After we see the system goes unstable, increase voltage a little bit, sometimes go a little bit more to achieve it. If there is unstable within the 1.5 volt, probably try to decrease the frequency until it becomes stable. And remember, even though we have the identical CPU, but due to the rotary, we might not end up the same result, exact same result, but it might be similar. Number 4, power supply. Nah, this is important. This is the most important. You have to take note about power supply. A cheap power supply will possibly take away all your components if you care about this. Get away from a cheap PSU, those are unbranded and underpowered, even unsafe, not to mention overclocking literally draw more current than usual. Try to look around the branded PSU, minimum rated at 550 watts, depends the GPU you are choosing in the current state, or use the link below to calculate how much power you need in your particular system. I recommend for an iGo GM600. Why? Because I'm using it, I'm feeling comfortable of using it, it's the best of about. It is 80 plus gold, rated at 600 watt, peak 650 watt, 90% efficiency under 50 to 60% load. It also comes the tin copper full modular cables, which is good for performance and overall material longevity, also give you the modular ability under affordable price range. Link in the description. Number 5. Benchmark and real-world testing. Everything we have done just for a reason. We want a performance gain. Usually, we use Cinebench R15 to benchmark the system. Why? Because it is free, and the other games with a built-in benchmark utility. We monitor the temperature to see if there is thermal throttling. We definitely don't want any thermal throttling. Record the benchmark score and so on. So this gives us the mathematical result for us, and we can clearly understand it. But don't forget, when things come in real world, it is different. Try to run every games that is in your computer. Games that is included the benchmark utility is better. Run them, play them, and monitor them. Monitor temperature, the system stability. If anything gone wrong, step back. Increase voltage or reduce the CPU frequency, the memory frequency, the memory voltage. Everything we have done, we redo until we get our sweet spot. The stable system, the performance powerful system. So that's it. Hopefully you learned something. So if you like this video, remember to give me a thumbs up, thumbs down for the opposite, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.